Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Opposite the Monitor, and I'm finally back from vacation, so the mic has been upgraded now. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. So yeah, man, Gamescom happened while I was on vacation. That was crazy. A lot of nice stuff got announced, man. A lot of great games and stuff like that. We got some more information about Cyberpunk that we're going to talk about today. We're going to get into the first bit of that, as well as Soulframe got announced, which was pretty dope. This was specifically at 10Con, but man, it was still amazing to watch. But so many other games got announced. We got like Killing Floor 3 that got announced. That looked amazing. So yeah, man, so much stuff, so much great stuff got announced, as well as some new AMD GPUs, which for me, I thought that was kind of like the highlight of Gamescom. You know what I'm saying? Essentially, them taking direct shots at NVIDIA. And I mean, look, those new AMD GPUs look enticing, especially since they're the mid tier GPUs. So I mean, like they're the more like mainstream type of GPU that is like in that more affordable range for gamers now. So yeah, that man, it's making me want to really build me like a AMD build, man. Like that, I'm working on building me a new, rig, and I've been trying to decide whether or not to just do like an all AMD build or, wait for Intel's new Arc GPUs to like fully release and drop and have that whole thing go on, because I want to do a nice comparison, because that's a brand new competitor coming into the space now. So I mean, I'm excited, man. There's a lot of stuff going on, but Gamescom just is definitely great. But we got some more information that I wanted to talk about with Cyberpunk 2077 and the new Phantom Liberty new ways to play trailer that got announced. And so kind of what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna start from the bottom of this, essentially, where they kind of go over the summary and next steps. But essentially, they kind of talked about Excessive Phantom Liberty and the new Relic skill tree, perks and cyberware overhaul, Dogtown, major characters in the Phantom Liberty, revamped police systems, and enhanced vehicle combat and gigs. And now just to kind of like go over each little bit of that, and we'll kind of go through this because there's a lot of information. If you guys want to check this out, you can, I'll put the link in the description of the video that you guys can check this out too. But, so one of the nice little tidbits that they kind of broke down in the trailer too, as well as this author that goes over this in his article, where they kind of go over to say that you'll unlock talents in the tree not by leveling up, but rather by locating and accessing Militech data terminals that are scattered throughout Dogtown that will give you relic points to spend on new talents. In other words, it's an exploration base, which is nice to have. So that way it's kind of, and I think they kind of talked about this in the previous announcement of Phantom Liberty, where they kind of went over a little bit more detail with that. But I also think this is kind of nice though, and pretty dope, because they have a separate set of skills that you can kind of enhance with your own or I guess like attributes that you can kind of enhance with your already owned skills, essentially. And you can get the relic points just by finding them, which is nice to have. And that way it's just not like all XP based. What it does is that it gives a nice dynamic and a good variety to the gameplay while you're playing the game. But they kind of go on to kind of give like a little bit more detail into the relic tree. So they go on to say that the relic tree is significantly smaller than that of the attributes, and the talents really do seem to be exclusively focused on providing some sort of boost to one of the active abilities that you can get from your cyberware, like the different arms or the optical camo. And they kind of breaking this down here with some screenshots of a perk called Jailbreak, or a relic skill called Jailbreak, as well as the other breakdowns for vulnerability analytics, emergency cloaking, machine learning, data tunneling, launch capacity override, and limiter removal. So there's a lot of information in this article, as well as in the trailer as well, that they kind of already broken down for us. But yeah, man, this is exciting news though, because I'm definitely jumping back into Cyberpunk 2077. A lot of the things that I wanted that needed to change in the game, they're changing, and they're adding these features to the game. And this is what's, bringing me back into the fold of Cyberpunk. And I'm glad, CD Projekt Red is kind of recognizing some of the faults and some of the issues with the original game that they had, and they're kind of rectifying that now. So I'm glad they're being able to do that. But moving on, we go into the perks and cyberware overhaul. And yeah, man, they just kind of go over the breakdown of the different perks, the different skills, the different the whole entire skill tree and the leveling system as well. And they kind of go over like having the cyberware and it having two different, they still kind of have the same kind of branching skills, but they reworked the entire UI so it looks a little bit more, it looks different. It has a little bit more accessibility to it. It's not as confusing, because that was like kind of one of the other gripes that people had when trying to level up their skills and stuff, is like being able to navigate into the UI was very, very confusing, and being able to I guess going through too many steps to be able to level up something as well too. So I mean, this is more streamlined for the player, which is nice. But yeah, and then they kind of go over and they kind of show you just like the cyberware capacity and stuff, and what the cap is, and then how that kind of affects you as the player, and possibly going into cyber psychosis and stuff like that. And so yeah, man, it's definitely revamped. I like that they're taking some like inspiration, some pointers and stuff like that from the anime. That was actually pretty dope as well, which you can see the Edge Runners perk that they have here. But yeah, this looks nice. This looks very, very, very exciting. And I can't wait to kind of jump back in with my character that I have. One good thing too, like I'm glad that, because my character is very much so melee focused, and I use a katana most of the time, a katana and a pistol as a secondary, but I mainly use a katana, and I like the new features that they've added with the melee combat, which we'll get into right now. But they kind of have like they go into more details about Dogtown, and stuff like that. And they talk about how different it is from Night City, and they kind of talk about the NCPD versus I guess the military force that's within Dogtown. And stuff like that. And they kind of go over the fact that you'll have like an apartment that is linked to or this kind of linked to other cities, so that way I'm assuming it's the fast travel bit that they have. But and I mean, it goes in with revamping the entire apartment system and stuff like that they had previously. But yeah, they kind of just go over small details and changes that they've made to to some of the other worlds, as well as Dogtown specifically. So then they go on to kind of talk about like the new DLC characters that are coming in. And so we have Kurt Hansen, who is the leader of Dogtown and commander of a group of soldiers called the Barghest. I think that's how I pronounce it. And then we also got Rosalind Myers. She's the president of the new United States of America and former CEO of Militech. So I'm pretty sure she'll have a lot of different quests, most likely some information, some nice probably storylines, quest line bits that you'll probably get more insight on as well into Militech. And then of course you also have Solomon Reed, which is played by Idris Elba, who is the sleeper agent. So I mean, yeah, those are the two new characters though are definitely going to be interesting. I want to learn more about them, most likely being able to just sit down and have a conversation, I guess, like right here, what you're doing with Rosalind Myers, where you're sitting down having a drink and stuff like that. But moving on though, we kind of have some more information, and this is kind of like what I'm excited about it. I jotted down revamp police system in action. So they go over a lot of different aspects of the police and the police system in this particular hour-long, I guess it was interview or like a podcast, essentially, kind of like one of those Night City, I guess, like showcases that they have, where they sit back and they talk about all the different details of the specific update that they're delivering. But they go over to say that the police will employ tactics against you to try and stop your car, like T-boning, running you off the road, and presumably blockades. They go on to say that when you first commit crimes, the police show up at the scene trying to figure out what happened, and they only engage if the action is still happening. If you keep ramping things up, so will the police response. That is nice. That is what I want. Like, because in the original, before this update, police were stagnant. They didn't do anything, and they did stuff like, it was just very inconsistent. And a lot of the times when you do specific actions and different things like that, they wouldn't even show up half of the time. And then the other times when they did show up, they didn't pursue you as hard, or they didn't pursue you at all in some instances. Or sometimes they would just appear, like they would just come from literally running from around a corner or running up behind you off camera. And then that's when the police response will be impactful at that point in time. But even if you were to get in the car, drive away, they wouldn't chase you. You could just drive out of that area and then there would be no police response after that. So, I mean, I'm glad that they're implementing that piece into the game because that is very much needed. So they go on to say that at lower levels of heat, it's just additional manpower, but then they start bringing in the fancy vehicles and eventually max tech. Max tech is kind of like that, you know, not call to arms, but that end goal, that outcome where it's just like, you know, this is the last resort. We're sending in the best of the best. And so they go on to say that there are 5 different max tech classes with the 4 members that come to fight you being some random combination of the 5, and each of them has their own boss level, boss health bar. Yeah, that's definitely kind of, you know, intimidating, I guess. But I mean, I guess for the players that, you know, definitely want to, you know, engage in some more, you know, more difficult combat, this is probably the best route if you want to test that out, you know, with Max Tech. I know definitely, it sounds like CD Projekt Red is definitely trying to, you know, make that consequence system and that police system very much so indicative of, you know, you understanding how lived in this world can be and how fast it can escalate. And so I'm excited for this. I'm definitely looking forward to this. I want to be able to, you know, I may test this out once I'm like, you know, once I get further into the story, because there's just part of it that I just kind of stopped playing because of game breaking bugs and story missions being halted because of the bugs and stuff like that. But yeah, man, the police system definitely needed to include this as well. And they kind of go on to also, you know, give more details on the police system and the escalation process. The rate of escalation depends on the district, with wealthier districts escalating things faster since they care more and have more funding, which makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Typically that's how that goes. You know, if you're in a more well-funded area, the crackdown on crime is going to be significantly higher versus areas that are not as funded. So I mean that, you know, that makes a lot of sense. That plays into the realism, I guess, because I know they were trying to balance between realism and player agency a lot of the time. So they were trying to figure out a good happy medium for that. But moving on, though, we kind of get into vehicle combat, gigs, and car chases. This is also another very exciting point, and this kind of plays into like my specific character that I have who focuses on, you know, melee combat with like a katana. So they're going to say that some vehicles have mounted turrets on missile racks, and now there's some quick hacking you can do to vehicles, and the passengers inside them as well. Skilled net runners will even be able to control vehicles remotely. That sounds dope. And during the trailer too, they kind of show like the mounted turrets and the missile racks and stuff like that. And I'm pretty sure once you level up these skills, you'll be able to, you know, have better aiming and also be able to, you know, perform these actions a lot easier. But they go on to also say that you actually obtain such vehicles from completing new vehicle contract gigs for El Capitan after he learns you've made it inside Dogtown. So, you know, getting the vehicles, you know, still like those armored vehicles, as well as the vehicles with the weaponry assembled onto it as well. You can get it all through doing vehicle contract gigs, which is nice. So I mean that makes it really good versus I think before you had to buy some of them, or most of them you had to buy with money, and that kind of resulted in a lot of grind a little bit too as well. But yeah, man, this all of this information that was given like during the showcase as well as during the that trailer as well, man, it's all great, and it's definitely got me excited, definitely got me wanting to kind of jump into Cyberpunk 2077, man. I'm excited for it, definitely. But moving on though, we kind of have some more information that I want to get into. And Soulframe, man, Digital Extremes revealed more gameplay details for its free-to-play Elden Ring competitor. It also dropped a 30-minute gameplay demo as well that showcased a lot of different things, and it looked amazing. I mean, as far as the graphics go, it looks really, really, really good. I remember playing Warframe back in the day, just like a little bit. I couldn't really get into Warframe in the initial, and I think what happened, like Warframe changed over time. So over time, Warframe eventually became like an almost completely different game from what it initially was, which was great. But I just, at that point, I just wasn't invested into the game anymore. But they, the developers of Warframe are coming in to make, I guess, a successor. I don't know if I wouldn't necessarily call it like a sequel or a prequel or anything, but it's like a successor, and it's called Soulframe. So the developer explained how the skill set in Soulframe is divided into three sets called virtues. And that's courage, spirit, and grok, or grace, I guess, which are based on a fighter, magic, or assassin character seen in similar fantasy RPGs. So that's kind of like not necessarily like classes, but I'm assuming like your skills, I guess. And this is if you want to go more so into like the fighter class or like the magic or the assassin type of skill set, which is nice. They go on to also say that in Soulframe, the envoy has their soul and heart taken from them, and the only way they can gain permanent skills is to reconnect with their ancestors and collect their souls. I thought it was a very interesting way to be able to kind of like, gain skills and perks and things like that. It kind of plays into the story. It also allows you to be able to kind of like actually like be invested in the story, because I'm pretty sure each one of these ancestors are going to have their own kind of backstory that you learn about. And, it kind of plays into the actual skills and perks and things like that. They also showed off two classes or perks, I guess, and they're called packs. And then this is essentially, they only showed off Fae and Old Testament. But they have three of them, and you can kind of switch seamlessly in between them if you go to this hub. During the gameplay demo, they showed this hub that you can essentially go to, and the hub has a nice little area with like campfire, different beds, and I'm assuming eating it. And during the gameplay demo, the developers said that each one of these beds are specifically for your ancestors. So I'm assuming you can always go back and, go to that hub all the time and be able to speak to them and things like that, and possibly get more lore out of them and stuff. So, I mean, it sounds dope. The gameplay looked really good. They showed off co-op gameplay, which looked great. I don't know if it's more than just 2-player co-op, but essentially what, the 2-player co-op looked great. The combat looked amazing. The combat looked very, very Souls-like, which I like. And that kind of adds a different element of, difficulty, as well as Soulframe the combat is very like a lot slower than Warframe is. Warframe's combat was very much so fast paced, and I like the more slower, like Souls like combat, as well as the different magic. And they also kind of like, I guess, got a pointed to from God of Wars. You can kind of throw your sword at enemies and then call it back. That looked amazing. That looked dope. So I'm excited for this, man. I'm definitely, I tried to see if I could wish list it, but I need to reserve it though, essentially. But moving on though, we kind of got some more information that I want to talk about. And, a possible expansion to God of War Ragnarok is in development, per an insider. So please take this with a grain of salt. I personally don't like talking about, rumors and stuff like that, but I kind of had my own opinion with this, and I kind of wanted to just talk about it just a little bit though, but take it with a grain of salt. So as reported by Gaming Boat via Reset Era, a renowned industry insider known as the Snitch on Twitter claims that DLC for God of War Ragnarok is currently in development and is claimed to be roughly 60% through its completion. They go on to say that what's more, it is also claimed that the DLC will arrive at some point this year. It's unclear at this time whether this content will be direct DLC to Ragnarok or a standalone experience, much like Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales. And they kind of give a little bit of, I guess, credence to this claim, is that interestingly, just this month, current series developer Santa Monica Studio advertised a new job listing that required knowledge of both God of War and God of War Ragnarok, which that could also mean that they're just making God of War 3. Essentially. But I wanted to kind of speak about this because one like thing that would be nice for this game, especially since it's so different. They kind of go on, they kind of talk about it as well as like, I don't think like God of War has ever had a DLC associated with it. They've just always been extra games. This would actually be par for the course of Sony nowadays, and it would also be really dope to have because you can essentially get a side story dedicated only to Atreus. Because at the end of Ragnarok, if you've played it by now and you beat it, Atreus goes his own way to learn more about like himself and stuff like that. And so this would kind of actually benefit the game, in my opinion, because I like Spider-Man Miles Morales, having that game, not only was it like a nice little, holdover for Spider-Man 2 and stuff, but you also get like more information. You get to spend a lot more time with the character and stuff like that. It wasn't a very long game, and they only charged like $40 for it, which was nice. And I think this would be pretty dope if they did it for God of War 2, because I think it would be more impactful if they did it for God of War versus when they did it for Spider-Man Miles Morales. And the main reason for that being is because the setup that they've already created with God of War and God of War Ragnarok, I want to know more information about Atreus becoming Loki, or if he ever becomes Loki and anything like that. Like, I want to see that. I want to see like a time jump and stuff like that happens within the side game. And then once we come back to God of War 3, Atreus has probably been gone for like maybe, 5 or 6 years at this point. And he's like in his early 20s or whatever like that. And like, this is kind of like where, and I thought about this too after playing the game, and I'm like, this would make so much sense if you just did like a spinoff of the God of War game and focused it on Atreus, and did maybe like not even like a 25-hour, like it could be literally like maybe 10-15 hours or whatever, with a little bit of side quests here and there. You could like explore this new area that he's been investigating and stuff like that, to try to find out more about his, because you find out like about his ancestors and stuff like that, but and they kind of focus on his mom a lot more too in the in Ragnarok, through Kratos's perception, through his eyes. And I kind of want to see more of Atreus's a storyline. So this is kind of like, exciting news, I guess, to kind of talk about, to kind of like, I guess have an opinion on and predict, I guess. But like, I think they should definitely do this. I'm not saying that this is, something that's going to happen by any means, but I think this is something that they should definitely do, because it sets up a nice, it'll set up God of War 3 even better, in my opinion. So, and I don't think it'll be like a loss, or I don't think it'll be like a waste of time to be able to focus on Atreus and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that you could definitely do like a DLC, or not even just a DLC, like a completely separate game, charge $40 for it, and give a good amount of content in there with some side quests and stuff like that. You can even use Thor's daughter as a companion, since they were already kind of friends in God of War Ragnarok anyways. So I think this would be pretty dope to even kind of like experiment with, essentially. But yeah, man, I thought this was some good information that I wanted to just kind of bring up really quick, because I thought like, man, like it would be nice to kind of have a, spinoff of Atreus / Loki's like kind of story, a backstory, anything like that. So yeah, man. But moving on, we got some information about Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2, and it's effectively gonna be updated for more modern audiences, and it's gonna be more cold and brutal. So we wanted to make it more raw, more violent, with the kind of cold brutality. Love it all. So I mean, you can kind of get that aesthetic from the gameplay that was already shown, as well as the trailers and stuff like that too. So I mean, I can definitely see that, especially if you do a comparison to the original Space Marines. I can kind of see where they're coming from with the more comical, I guess, like comic book aesthetic that some of the characters and some of the enemies had during that time. But I mean, it was just, that game was just a product of its time. So I can completely get and understand why they want to do an upgrade to the visuals effectively. But they go on to say that we've sort of grown and matured and expanded. So things like the range combat, the melee combat, the scale were all great, but we wanted to make it more raw, more violent, with the kind of cold brutality. They go on to also say that the first one with the Cockney orcs had more of a subtle cartoonish element to it, which I can attest to, because I going back and looking at the original game, because I hadn't played that game in so long. Going back and looking at it and just doing some comparisons to the trailer that I saw, I was like, yeah, this definitely looks, it definitely was a product of its time. They said it has a comic book feel, perhaps. The version feels more real, harsher, bolder. I would call it a maturation of the original game. And yeah, I mean, definitely, I would definitely kind of get that from this trailer. It definitely has upgraded graphics and stuff like that. But what it essentially reminds me of is, it reminds me a lot of Gears of War. Gears of War, the first one, it reminds me a lot of that. I get a lot of that Gears of War feel from watching this trailer. I'm excited to play, Space Marines 2. I've been singing it a lot of time in the Dark Tide as well. But yeah, like, I'm excited to play Space Marines 2, man. I'm definitely wanting to kind of jump back into this world. I've been trying to learn a lot more on, the lore of Warhammer 40K and stuff like that too. And because I really like this world, I'm trying to get more into it. So I mean, yeah, man, I'm learning more as I go with this. But Space Marines 2 definitely looks interesting, definitely looks exciting and stuff like that, man. I can't wait for this to come out. I definitely think the more realistic, like brutal, cold approach to this is going to benefit this game a lot. And I mean, it's just the more modern take with it too, man. Like you have, I can tell just by like the darker palette of colors that they have within the trailer as well. So I mean, yeah, all I got to do is just get my hands on it. Just essentially get my hands on it, man. And I'm already ready to go. That's it. But moving on though, we got some more information on this PlayStation Portal. Pre-order details will be revealed soon. I don't know who would want to pre-order this. Like I said before, it came out. First of all, I knew it was going to be like around $200. I said $200 to $250. That's number one. Number two, I know like people want to kind of like, play this, for the sake of, because I can, be able to not play on my TV. Sometimes I can just lay in bed or whatever, or, I could take a shit while I'm playing it or whatever like that. They're just like, sorry guys, had some, technical difficulties, some hiccups. OBS crashed on me for some reason. But like I was talking about before, I know some of the people are just going to be like, hey, I just want to be able to like play it when I'm, not in the same room or whatever like that, which, Sony kind of goes over with this. I still think it's a waste of time, essentially. $200 for, essentially remote play is a waste. A lot of people don't know what the reason for this is. It's a gimmick. It's a cash grab, in my personal opinion. But, Sony goes on to say that, it's a device for gamers in households where they might need to share the living room TV or simply want to play games in another room of the house. Like, they could already do this via remote play, You could already do this via remote play. That's essentially what this is remote play. It's just you put a screen in between a PS5 controller, and it's I'm at a loss for words with this. But they go on to say that the PlayStation Portal will take advantage of brand new wireless technology called PlayStation Link. This is actually some new information. PlayStation says the new tech offers low latency and lossless audio, which should ideally result in smooth gaming sessions when away from your PS5. I guess that's a good benefit, but you completely take me out of it with this next piece. However, the new PlayStation Link feature means that the Portal won't support Bluetooth headphones. What in the hell? How can you create something in 2023 that doesn't support Bluetooth? I don't understand this. It's ridiculous. So, and I'm assuming they mentioned the PlayStation Elite headset as well as the Pulse Explore Buds, and I'm assuming that roundabout way of, creating Bluetooth to be able to still listen to your games while you're playing them is by connecting it to the PS5 and having the PS5 produce the sound while you're remote playing, using the PlayStation Portal. And I'm just like, well, like, this is such a waste of time. It's a waste of money. In my personal opinion, it's not worth the PlayStation Link. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's something you could turn into an app. You could legit turn PlayStation Link into an app, which very much sounds like Steam Link. That's what it sounds like to me. And I'm just like, why? You know, the only way you're going to be able to benefit from this is, from the sound at least, is that you have to plug in a wired, you have to use a wired headset. It's the only way. It's for multiplayer games only, or like, you know, specifically for multiplayer games. So it's not even, you know, I mean, essentially you can kind of send the audio into, you know, the game or whatever. But I mean, like, why would you plug it into, you know, why would you plug it directly into the portal when you can just Bluetooth the headphones to the PS5 and then use remote play essentially to the portal? Like, it makes my head hurt sitting here thinking about this shit. This shit is just a waste. It's a waste of time, waste of resources, waste of money, waste of every damn thing. And I'm just like, I don't know what Sony's trying to do with this. This is probably the worst idea I've ever seen, in my opinion. This is the worst idea of a handheld ever. Never have I ever seen something so stupid before in my life. And I'm just like, why? It makes no sense. It literally makes no sense to even have this. But yeah, it just gets worse. It gets worse as we go on. It's the closer we get to the release of this, it just gets worse. And I'm just kind of, I'm curious to see, like, if this is going to sell well, because I know there's people out here that will buy this shit. There's people out here that will just buy this, and then it's like, you know, well, damn, it's like, well, you know, people just buy any damn thing, and it's probably just because it has a PlayStation name on it, has a Sony name on it, or whatever, or they just curious, you know, or people just be like, oh, I just want to test it out. And it's just like, why? I don't need to test some shit out that I have information on. Like, if I know it sounds stupid and I can verify the stupidity with the knowledge that I've been able to gain from reading multiple sources. But moving on, though, we got some information about Phasmophobia. It was delayed on console following the fire incident in developer's office building. I think this is actually pretty crazy. Hopefully no one got hurt during this incident, but I would like to know how this fire started to begin with. But they go on to say that due to a recent fire incident in our office building, an unprecedented development issue, our ability to test and develop has been significantly impacted. They go on to say, after careful consideration, we have made the tough decision to delay the console release, initially set for August, while we get everything sorted. We are now aiming for a special launch during the week leading up to Halloween, this October. So, yeah, man, this is actually kind of crazy. Phasmophobia is a fun game. I've played a little bit of it, what little I could play of it. It is definitely, for me, it's like, it is scary on a little bit. And even though I like playing like horror games, like I like playing Resident Evil and stuff like that, and Silent Hill and stuff, but it's just kind of different or whatever, with this in particular. But yeah, it's kind of unfortunate, man. Like, console players won't be able to get their hands on this until October. But I mean, it's long as it's still coming, you guys are gonna be able to get your hands on it. You just won't be able to get it on the initial release. But yeah, man, I thought this incident was pretty crazy, pretty wild, because I'm just like, man, like, a fire broke out in the office? How the hell did that happen? Like, what went on during this particular incident to make this, type of situation occur like this? But who knows, man. But that's it for today, guys. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you like the video. If you like the content, subscribe to the channel and also hit the bell so you never miss a video. Thank you guys for tuning in this week, and I'll see you guys next week.